Hi, and welcome to another episode of BYU MBA Horizons. Today's guest is deeply motivated by opportunities to build and create. And when she came back to the program, she wanted to find a company that would let her do just that. Cassandra Wilson tells her story on today's episode of BYU MBA Horizons. Cassandra Wilson, welcome back to the MBA program here at BYU.
Thank you. It hasn't been that long.
Yeah, you graduated about a year ago, is that right?
Exactly. Yeah, May 2014.
Okay, excellent. Before we kind of jump into the main topic, could you sort of walk us through some of the things you did before coming back to the program?
I am a BYU undergrad alum as well, and left with an econ degree from here back in 2006, and went on to become an economist at the Bureau of Labor Statistics in downtown Boston, which was really exciting. Had a really fun team I was working on, reaching out to people, trying to get them to voluntarily participate in a national compensation survey, and really much more of a sales job than I would have expected. But a lot of fun, and ended up, I really loved it, but had to leave when my husband needed to finish up his last semester at BYU. And that kind of changed my path quite a bit. You know, I had been on the let's pursue econ for real as an economist, and kind of pivoted and started sort of some exploration. Had a lot of fun with that, and it wasn't until a little bit later that I actually started dipping into HR. And found I was at a company that did regional, kind of had a regional reach as an accounting firm. And that was really the first place that I'd ever worked at where they were very clear that talent was king. You got things together, you applied for the program. Once you got in, did you already know at that point that you were going to focus on HR? I did.
Okay.
Yeah. I was very clear at that point. I was going to focus on HR, and was really won over by the alumni and the faculty, especially. I had the pleasure of interviewing with Troy Nielsen, and just really found it very impressive how, like, the personal relationships that he has with his students. He wasn't just trying to meet some numbers. He wasn't just looking at me as a collection of numbers. You know, he really wanted to understand, you know, my goals and sort of what my path had been and what I wanted to contribute to the program, as well as what I was trying to gain from the program and what I was willing to invest to get there. And you just don't find that everywhere, you know?
Right. With any big change like this, there's usually some fear, at least on a small level. Did you have any reservations as you came into the program, and how did you deal with those?
I was very nervous about coming into the BYU MBA program as a woman with 5 years of work experience, intending to follow a career path, knowing from my undergrad days that is not common for multiple reasons.
Right.
And so I was quite daunted and worried about coming into the program and possibly having to really go the extra mile to prove that I belong here. And then this is an unknown thing, getting an MBA, and I had seen how rigorous it was for my husband in his program at the University of Kentucky. And so there's definitely some fear about, okay, I'm going back to school. This is going to be very different. And it's, like you said, a big change, and that always brings its own set of challenges. I found it pretty invigorating to take that risk and step into that. But it was still, I just was kind of anxious to get in there and just start doing it. So it's like the waiting between accepting, the offer from the BYU MBA program and starting. That was definitely the worst part. It's like when I knew once I could get in here, I would stop psyching myself out, and I could have a really great time and work hard and make it happen.
Right. And once you got in and things kind of picked up into full swing, looking at your history here, you got involved in an organization specifically to promote the women in the program. Is that correct? And what are some of the details behind that?
Yeah, so there's a Women in Management program that is specifically for the MBAs and MPAs at BYU. And they reached out to me as soon as I came to the program. And it was an awesome way to connect with the other women and realize that we came from very different backgrounds and were pursuing very different paths, but had all kind of intersected here at this point in time. And it became a great support system. They have amazing speakers that they bring in. There were opportunities to just network with one another because the women here are phenomenal in their own right. But it was a really great reminder of, the sky's the limit, really, and not to hold yourself back and not to kind of bring with you a gender label, but just to let go of that and show up as a strong professional with a lot to offer. And kind of, if you aren't making gender an issue and you act like it's not, 9 times out of 10, it won't be, which is a really cool reality that I don't think I had quite fully grasped until I started hearing about it from the other women in the program and experiencing it myself, and definitely hearing about it from some of the women who had gone on from the program to pursue very successful careers.
Wonderful. A huge part of life in the BYU MBA program is the recruiting season.
Yes.
So when you started looking at companies and submitting resumes and all of that process, how did things go for you? Were there any experiences in that process that surprised you?
Yes. So the biggest surprise in that process was how poorly I interviewed when I joined the program. I feel like the preparation that the BYU MBA program gives you to go out there with a strong resume, very tailored to where you're going, while still reflecting where you've been, and preparing you to really connect with the interviewer to show that you're the right fit for the company, you are the right fit for that role, and you show them you in that role through the interview process. I never had that before I came here.
Well, apparently you were able to turn it around because you ended up at LinkedIn for your internship, and that's where you are now for your full-time role.
I am. It's an amazing opportunity. And
you're doing HR for LinkedIn.
I am. So I work, my internship was supporting or working on the HRIT team. They were rolling out a new human capital management system, and I worked on that rollout. I have no technology background. So that was a really cool experience, learning how to jump into something where I don't have the experience or background that the other people around me have, and figuring out how to leverage my strengths to still add value to the team. And when I came back to LinkedIn after graduating, I joined as a project manager within HR. So
LinkedIn, about a 12-year history, founded in about 2003, I think. High growth organization, but young. What is it like to do HR for such a young organization?
It's really exciting. And I think more than the age of the organization, it's the emphasis on professional networking, because that's the site is professional networking site, and so we're all about talent. You'd almost say it is an HR company. It's like doing HR at an HR company, right. And because of that, there's HR isn't seen as a cost center or a burden on the organization. It's seen as the enabler of our success. And it's wonderful to feel the energy that there is around, like, let's learn how to do this the best. Our talent acquisition organization likes to kind of tout their mission is to be best on planet. And I feel like that's like those audacious goals and audacious statements are pretty common as far as what we're striving for. But what makes it really cool for me is I see it's all about getting there together. There's no one clawing their way over you,
right,
trying to be like the best person on the planet. It's let's all work together and bring that collective intelligence and energy and engagement to like achieve that as an organization. And that's, for me, like what makes it so great to walk into work every day.
So you must be building a lot of things that have never been built before at LinkedIn. Where do you go to get your best practices or ideas for things that may not have been done before?
So a lot of it, a lot of really cool ideas are just coming from people thinking about the problem in a different way. If they don't, we hire a lot of early in career and like have a really strong campus recruiting program. And I've seen from that there's a lot of the ideas are just coming from a fresh perspective, and an ability to walk in the door and start asking questions. Why are we doing it that way? And the interesting thing about LinkedIn is we've grown so quickly that a lot of it is just like, let's do this because it works and we can get enough people in the door to like meet the needs that we have as a growing organization. And we're like now to a point where we're starting to like the dust is settling to some extent, and we're like, okay, so that worked to get us here, but it's not necessarily the best solution. And so there's a lot of exciting opportunities to, you see people kind of asking like, wait, why do we do it that way? And like transforming into a better way of doing things.
So in the time that remains, what advice do you have for our current students to maximize their time while in the program?
A really big payoff for me in the program was focusing very deliberately on like when it was recruiting season, to really be present for that. And like I said, dedicating all of that time to really refining my skills, because I knew that I could really add value at an organization. I really wanted to do that. But in order to get into that role, I needed to be able to succinctly share that. And, every hour I spent on that, all the missed sleep and, the sacrifices I had to make in my schoolwork to do that, absolutely worth it. And it really, I think, just leveraging your classmates, realizing, like, take a moment to look around you and see the amazing talent that is right by your side, the incredible experiences that they have, taking the time to really invest in building those relationships and tapping into that amazing experience is going to matter to you so much more than, the classwork, which is really cool and invigorating and exciting. But I think what makes those classes so amazing are like the discussions that happen because of the people you're there with, and just making sure that you're building some space into your schedule so that you can have, the open interactions kind of in a more, either one-on-one or, within your groups. It's really powerful. And just making sure you are tapping into our amazing alumni network, because I can't think of one person who's a BYU alum who I reached out to who wasn't more than happy to take some time out of their day and have a conversation with me. And I learned wonderful things. I met amazing people, and I was truly inspired. And if I hadn't have reached out, however, I would have missed out on all of those opportunities. So I would strongly encourage that, incoming students take advantage of that.
Cassandra Wilson, class of 2014, thank you so much for coming back and sharing your story with us. Best of luck to you in the future.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.